Get in tighter places with an impact wrench. This is the RIDGID Sub-Compact Brushless half-inch right angle impact wrench. Now it runs on their 18-volt battery platform. Well, it's their only battery platform now. Anyway, we've got it paired up with a 6 amp hour max output battery. We're going to test this and see if it actually hits the 250 foot-pounds of loosening or breakaway torque. Let's dive into the features, then we'll take it over to the test bench, come back and talk about pricing, warranty, and what we think of it. RIDGID's new sub-compact brushless half-inch right angle impact wrench is the model number R8721B as a bare tool. It does not come with this kit. We have the 6 amp hour max output battery on it. They do say it's best paired with max output batteries. So again, we have the 6 amp hour. And then I just have a rapid charger behind us, and then a dual port charger as well. And then an even protective boot that you can actually buy for the right angle impact as well. If you're concerned about keeping this nice and pretty or keeping it from getting banged up, then you can get that protective boot as well. Now, a couple of things different about this right angle impact is the fact that we have multiple modes here with an auto mode. So we get 3 different modes to apply the torque that this is putting out. Now let's talk about the torque. 250 foot-pounds of breakaway or loosening or nut busting or whatever you want to call it torque. So reverse torque is 250 foot-pounds. We will obviously test that. We get a half-inch anvil here. If you get the model number 8720, that will be a 3/8 anvil, same power, same modes, same speeds, everything else. So pretty much identical other than the anvil. I did think it was pretty interesting that here on the head's a bit different than most other of the right angle impacts that we've tested before, just a little bit in the shape. But anyway, it's supposed to be the most compact in the class. We'll measure it up here in a moment. We also get an LED right here that helps to shine a little bit of light where we may need it. Pretty typical trigger that you can grab with one finger or 2 fingers, and decent ergonomics here, rubber overmolding, pretty typical stuff. Obviously brushless motor that's delivering the power of the 250 foot-pounds. Let's talk about the speed. So if we're in speed 1, you can see here no impacting going on yet until we actually apply some pressure. But in speed 1, we're going to get 0, meaning we have a variable speed trigger, so I can make that go really slow if I want to. And as I grab more throttle, it's going to give more RPM. You're going to get 0 to 1600 RPM in speed 1. In speed 2, you're going to get 0 to 2400 RPM. And in speed 3, you're going to max out at 3200 RPM. Now on the impact side, or the impacts per minute, it's going to max out at 3200 impacts per minute. And that's going to vary based on the RPM. So depending on the RPM is going to know how much of that 3200 or 3800 impacts per minute, so max of 3800 impacts per minute, and again that's going to vary based on how much throttle you're giving it. Here's the other interesting thing. A lot of times in auto mode it just uses the max output. In this case the auto mode only uses 2100 RPM, which speed 2 is 2400, speed 1 is 1600, so it's kind of somewhere in the middle of speed 1 and speed 2 is the auto, again maxing at 2100 RPM. And that auto tightening mode is actually auto tightening and auto loosening as well. Supposedly it's supposed to stop the tool when loosening as well as tightening it, and we'll check that out during our testing and show that in use. Now before we go use this, I did want to talk about these battery chargers here. I think those are some of the most overlooked tools probably in your arsenal and in everyone's tool arsenal or toolbox. Because I think we're so worried about tools, then we're worried about batteries, and we overlook the charger aspect, especially if you're using this a lot. If you're a DIYer and you're using this, 3 or 4 times during the week, and one battery sustains you, and you can put it on the charger overnight and it's charged by the next time you use it. It doesn't matter what type of charger you have. You could have a trickle charger that charges in 24 hours and it'll be fine for you. However, if you're using these a lot, you've got this impact driver and you got an impact wrench and you got this right angle impact, and you've got a drill and you've got a sander and everything else rigid, and you've got 14 batteries and you're constantly using those things, maybe even your profession, look at getting a more rapid charger. This charger will charge this 6 amp hour battery from 0 to 100% in an hour. This one is going to charge it about the same rate as well. However, this one will charge both ports at the same time. However, it's still a little less than this is going to output. This is max 240 volts. I think this is max 140 volts. However, this is split between two ports, so it's actually charging a little slower, and this is on one port. So again, look at a charger when you're looking at tools before, maybe buying more batteries, things like that. Definitely take into consideration an upgraded charger. And before we use this, let's get some measurements on this and a weight. Since we have to use this tool with a battery, we might as well weigh it with the battery. 4 pounds, let's see if we can, yeah, 4 pounds, 11.5 ounces. So right at 4 3/4 pounds. So 4 pounds, 11.5 ounces with the 6 amp hour. And we'll take it off just for those of you that want to know what it is off. 3 pounds, 2 ounces. And overall length on this, let's get from tip to tail, right at 17 inches. So dead on 17 inches as far as overall length. And looking at the width on this head, we'll measure across the screws here. And that's going to be a little less than 2.5 inches, so 2.45 inches, probably the same here. Oh, even a little less there. And as far as thickness, without the anvil, 2.25, and with that anvil, which you're always going to have a socket on there, about 3 inches. So clearance is pretty good on this. And here's another thing I'd recommend. If you're buying a right angle impact wrench, then go ahead and buy you some shallow sockets as well. And you can see how compact that is and how short that is, and really enable you to get to those exhaust manifold bolts, bell housing bolts, things like that, that are a lot of times tucked away. And if you've just got a long socket on the right angle impact, well, you're kind of defeating your purpose already. Let's go use this. Okay, if you've watched our stuff before on testing impact, what we're going to do is take our torque tool and we're going to torque these nuts down to 50 foot-pounds, 100 foot-pounds, 150 and 200, and then go to 300, 400, and 500, and jump in 100-pound increments after this. So again, 50, 100, 150, 200, then 3, 4, 5. Okay, we've got these torqued to 50, 100, 150, 200, and then we're skipping right over to 300, 400, and 500. And we've got our socket on. We've also got some index marks on that socket so we can see that turning. We give it 10 seconds to break it free. If it can't break it free in 10 seconds, then it doesn't get that point. Also, if it's starting to move at 10 seconds, we will let it go ahead and finish breaking that free. Let's go to speed 3. We'll come back and do auto here in a few moments. And we've got a full 6 amp hour battery. And let's get that in reverse. .300 foot-pounds. Okay, here's what's interesting. So that was torqued at 300 foot-pounds. Large socket, lots going on. Let's take these down and let's torque these at 250 and 300 and see if we break them free, being smaller fasteners. Okay, now we're starting back here at 250 foot-pounds, then to 300, 350, and 400. Again, full 6 amp hour battery. And we're in reverse in speed 3, 250. Okay, so definitely at the 10-second mark, it was starting to move that. We went ahead and let it take care of that. So 400 foot-pounds. So before we do the 450 and 500, let's shift in the auto mode and take a look here. So I've got this loosen bolt here. I'm gonna pull the trigger. Okay, so my finger's still on the trigger. So as soon as it senses it's tight, it's going to stop the tool. Let me go into reverse. Okay, my understanding is that in reverse it was supposed to do the same. Okay, there's forward again, it stops the tool. Now let's go into reverse. Again, see what happens here. Okay, it did stop the tool that time. Okay, stopping the tool and tighten. Okay, so it looks like sometimes in reverse it will stop it, sometimes it doesn't. Probably depends if it's hammering on it a certain amount of time. But anyway, the auto mode is going to stop the tool once it senses that it's tight or once it senses that it's loosened. So back to here at 450. Well, it didn't quite make the 450 foot-pounds. Took a little longer to break that free than 10 seconds, so it did not count on the 450. So it did handle the 400 foot-pounds, but interesting that it wouldn't do it on a larger nut, but would do it on the smaller nut. So lots of things going on when you're talking about torque. So it's not just always equal. It's based on sockets and fasteners and extensions and everything else. The auto mode works pretty good. Doesn't seem to notice it as much in loosening mode, but I don't think that's a big deal. This is a great tool for removing those hard to reach fasteners. Is it something you need to take your lug nuts off with? It'll probably do it if you're in a light truck or a passenger car. Would I recommend it for that? No, there's impact wrenches for that. In fact, RIDGID has an awesome mid-torque impact that will handle that just fine, or their high torque model. This is $199 as a bare tool. I think the boot is 25 or 30 bucks. If you want to, again, keep it all protected, you can do that as well. You get the lifetime service agreement when you buy a RIDGID tool, so make sure that within 90 days of purchase that you fill all that information out, and you can do that online, and it will have a service agreement for the life of this tool. Also, I highly recommend, again, upgrading your chargers. We'll have a link in the description of this. You can actually purchase this now. There's no wait for it. And also keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, would you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already? And by all means, did you hate our video? Well, then give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day. Keep smiling.